Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to my true crime segment of the channel where I share your true crime stories. Everything I am reading has been submitted by my amazing viewers. Thank you for allowing me to use my platform to help so many people. Like I've said before, I never realized how healing this was going to be, not only for everybody that's sharing stories, but even those who are listening and can resonate with it. So thank you for supporting this and allowing this to stay alive on the channel. If you have a story that you want to share, you can send it to sherrilynstories@gmail.com. All right, our first story. Hi Sherilyn, I've been a subscriber for a few years now and love the way you portray true crime. It's very respectful and informative, which sometimes is hard to come by. This story doesn't actually involve me, but does involve my biological father, who I've lost contact with. So I'd like to keep my identity anonymous. This case took place in 1990, 32 years ago, exactly this Memorial Day weekend. I'm from a small beach town that is highly sought after by tourists, and sadly, one of these tourists lost their life far too soon. 20-year-old Susan, I'll be keeping her last name anonymous for my own safety, was brutally sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Her body was found behind a popular restaurant in the area, extremely close to my father's place of work. My father was also one of the last people known to be seen with Susan the night of her death. It is important to note that at the time of her death, my father was an extremely abusive alcoholic. I understand that this doesn't make him a murderer, but for context, he was comfortable with choking my mother to the point of almost passing out while she was 8 months pregnant with me. Oh my gosh. Not much is known about the case at hand, but any coverage is good coverage. Most people in my hometown suspected my father and some of his friends, who all worked in close proximity to the crime scene, and he was a person of interest in this case for many years. This case is still unsolved, and sadly, both her parents who advocated for her have passed, leaving only her sister to continue pushing this case forward. Oh my gosh. My heart will always go out to Susan and her loved ones, and I appreciate you taking the time to read this, even if not featured on your channel. Thank you for this opportunity. I guess in terms of keeping you safe still, I'd be very curious to know if any of Susan's family members come across this video and this resonates with them and they think that this is their Susan. They might want to reach out and let me know to shine some more light on the case as a whole and maybe bring some more attention to it. This sounds devastating for everybody involved, and I can't imagine how you're feeling sharing this on your end, having it be your father that's speculated of being involved, and your heart is with Susan and her loved ones. It says a lot about you as a person. Thank you so much for sharing this. All right, the next story says, hello Sherilyn. First of all, I just wanted to say I love your content and just you in general. You are so beautiful and your voice is so soothing. It always relaxes me at night when I'm getting ready for bed, despite the topics. Well, thank you. I feel the same way about like Keith Morrison and Josh Mankiewicz. I can fall asleep to them like that. I love what you do and you seem so caring and generous. So thank you for being someone I feel I personally know and can trust even though we've never met. Oh, that means so much to me. Anyways, today I write you because there is a case in my city that I believe deserves as much attention as possible. This is the story of 17-year-old Itzel Espinoza, Itzel, oh God, I hope I'm saying this right, from Phoenix, Arizona. On July 3rd, 2021, Itzel was a beautiful teenage girl who was a junior in high school, about to be a senior, and she aspired to be a social media influencer. Around the time of her murder, she had been hanging out a lot with friends who her parents did not approve of because they were known for being involved in drugs, parties, etc., all very prevalent amongst the youth in Phoenix. A couple days before the tragic event, July 1st, her parents actually reported her missing because she failed to return home from being out with friends, but they did not know who. She was with 19-year-old Jesus Padilla, a 16-year-old boy, and 18-year-old Lindsay Brianna Aguilar. I'm not 100% sure on what they had been doing, but it is known that Lindsay and Itzel were in a physical fight at some point, and Jesus was watching. During the fight, Itzel ran to the car, not hers, and hopped inside to escape the violence. She locked it, and Lindsay was banging on the window, yelling at her to get out. Then, reportedly, Jesus handed Lindsay a gun, where she pointed at the window and shot through it at Itzel. She shot multiple times and sadly killed Itzel. The betrayal of that is just literally making my stomach turn. They took off and left her body in an abandoned car in an alley. It wasn't until 5:30 a.m. on July 3rd that somebody reported the body of a young girl in a car that she was found. A week before the murder, Itzel had posted Jesus, calling him her brother. Oh, and saying that they had a close relationship. It truly is so sad and scary that the person we think we can trust can turn around and do something this evil for no reason. Exactly. Oh my gosh. The police ended up arresting Jesus Padilla and an unnamed 16-year-old boy in relation to her murder, but not Lindsay, the one who pulled the trigger, because she escaped and to this day is still on the run. It's believed she is in Mexico since here in Arizona we are so close to the border, it would make the most sense. It has also been said she may be in Texas or Chicago. She's wanted for murder and must be found. We need justice for beautiful Itzel, who was taken from us far too early. Itzel currently has 68,000 followers on Instagram, and it continues to grow every day, even after her passing, due to the coverage of her case. Her family has spoken with the media quite a few times and describe her as a young Hispanic girl who loves social media, makeup, being with friends, modeling, and fashion. This is reminding me so much of Leslie Palacio, another beautiful young girl who loves social media, makeup, and was allegedly murdered by somebody that she was acquainted with and went to hang out with and obviously trusted that evening. He's also on the run. His name is Eric Rangel. If you want to know more about that, I do have a video of that on my channel. Thankfully, his father was caught, who was an accessory to disposing of Leslie's body, but he will not share where his son is. Phoenix is a small town, and I know several people who knew her, including my boyfriend. Her family is devastated from her tragic passing and continue to try to get justice for their angel and find Lindsay to lock her up. It is still not fully known what happened that night, which is so frustrating, especially for the family. She was so young and only had 2 months before she was going to turn 18. I'm a year older than Itzel, and I would say my personality is very much like hers, so it's hard to hear about cases like this that happen so close to home. She was truly loved by many, and there is always balloons and flowers at her grave that is visited a lot by family and friends. She was supposed to have such a beautiful life and touch so many with her presence, but it was all ripped away from her. Whew. And she was ripped away from us and all those, including myself, who didn't get the blessing to meet her. She is now an angel with her wings looking down on all her loved ones, and all we can hope is to get justice for her. I will attach a couple photos of Itzel from her Instagram and of Lindsay as well, with a tip line to call in any tips about Lindsay's whereabouts. She also goes by Lynn. She is now 19 years old and has a PHX tattoo on the back of her right hand, which I believe is covered with a sunflower tattoo. Thank you so much for sharing Itzel's story, and I know it was a little long, but definitely necessary. Love you, Sherilyn. Don't ever apologize for detailing a case, especially when we're trying to bring attention for victims who can't speak for themselves. Thank you for sharing. I will have all of the information here for you. So Itzel's Instagram is ITZELLIZAQZZ. However you say it. Justice for Itzel Instagram. There's another one, ISAASORIA. And then the silent witness line, the number is 480-WITNESS. And then you can contact the Phoenix Police Department if you have any information, and then reference the case 602-262-6151. And if you speak Spanish, 480-Testigo. Or should I say 48? How do you say zero? Babel has never taught me how to say zero. Oh, I did know that. Let's try this again. Si hablas español, 480 Testigo. I will also have all of that information linked in the description below for you as well. All right, our next story says, Hi Sherilyn, I recently found your channel and absolutely love what you do and how caring and sensitive you are with your content. This story isn't about me personally, but more something my small town went through. I would like to remain anonymous as I don't think it's important who I am. The story. I'm from the small town of Woodstock, Connecticut, and when I was in middle school, 7th grade, my school counselor was murdered. Judy Neale was the most caring person. The minute we got to school, she would be walking the halls smiling and waving at everybody. The most friendly face, welcoming us all every day. Miss Neale was really there for a few of my friends who were experiencing tough times in their lives. Middle school is hard. Those teen years of finding yourself are hard. Agreed. But she helped. She listened and cared and was always there for hugs and advice. Miss Neale was a runner. She ran every day with her dog. One day she went for a run and never returned. Her dog came home, but she didn't. Her husband immediately reported her missing. Her body was discovered the next day with her hands tied. When I tell you this was devastating to the community, there aren't words for what we all felt. Her body was discovered hidden in a barn on Carol Spiney's property. Yes, Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch's voice, Carol Spiney. He lived in Woodstock until he recently passed. He was also a kind and caring person. He had nothing to do with Miss Nealon's murder. It was his groundskeeper who hid her on Mr. Spiney's property. Oh my gosh. His groundskeeper at the time had struck Mrs. Nealon with his car, supposedly on accident, and abducted her and killed her. What? I don't know the results of if he was ever charged for murder, but I know he was originally arrested for kidnapping only. There is now an annual jog for Judy every year and a foundation in her name. She truly changed me and my friends' lives and was by far the best school counselor. She didn't deserve the ending she got. Thank you for letting us share our stories. I haven't talked about this event since middle school, and it's hard to think back and realize what an impact someone had on your life and how many others she could have impacted had she gotten the chance. Oh my gosh. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm sure there's more information on Google, but I just don't want to read it. Thank you again. Oh, my heart. All right, so there is a lot of information online just from me pulling this up very quickly. The murderer's name is Scott DOJ, and he did plead guilty to murder and he was sentenced to life in prison. So he is in prison for Judy's murder. Also, scrolling here and looking, I see so many photos of the run that happens for her every year, and I do love that is what is overwhelming my Google search right now, that her memory can live on and that it's not flooded with information about this monster who took her life. Oh, this just breaks my heart. Well, now I feel like I need to make a trip to Connecticut and go on the Run for Judy jog, and I'm not a jogger. Thank you so much for sharing the story. I am being very called to this. I feel like I have to look more into this. Like, why? I just don't understand. Is wrong with people. All right, the next story. Hi Sherilyn, I love your videos. Thank you for giving us a safe space to share our stories. My story is not anything special, but it started when I was 17. I had dated a guy for about 2 years. We broke up and I was very alone. The relationship was not a good one. He never harmed me, but he cheated and was ashamed to be with me. Probably because I've always been a little plus size. Well, that's freaking bullshit. Every inch of you deserves to be praised and appreciated every day of your life. I hope you know that. I have depression and anxiety, which made me feel I was not enough, so I kind of just let people walk all over me. I definitely suck at picking guys to date. Been there. Anyways, I met this guy named Chase. We met through mutual friends. Everything was perfect at first. He was sweet. He wanted to show me off to his family and friends. We spent so much time together, and it was basically every teenager's dream relationship. Then my best friend had a party one night while her parents were out of town. I was so excited because I'd never gone to any parties in fear of what would happen, but Chase was there, so I felt like I would be safe. I wasn't. Everything was good at first. I started drinking. I got too drunk. I was in the bathroom for what I think was 30 to 45 minutes, but truthfully, I have no idea. At this point, I could barely speak. I couldn't walk. I could barely crawl. I just assumed I drank too much and that I would be fine. After all, Chase was there. Next thing I knew, he had me by my hand trying to guide me to a closet. I'm not sure what happened there. Truthfully, I don't want to know. And then we were in my best friend's parents' bed. Chase's friend was already passed out in the bed and another one was on the floor. So we were far from alone. Everyone but Chase was really drunk. Then Chase started making me give him oral pleasure. I don't know how to say that to make it YouTube appropriate, LMAO. I would have said it the same way. I didn't want to do that. Plus, I was so sick from the alcohol. I was trying not to at first, but then I just let myself throw up on him. I thought it would make him stop. It didn't. I bit him. He bent me over the bed, and I think we all know what he did then. I told him to stop. I begged him to stop, but he wouldn't. At that point, I just gave up. I could barely move as it was, but my only thought was, if I woke up his friends, what are they gonna do? Were they gonna help me or help him? Whew. I don't remember the next day much other than that I just slept. I was heartbroken and terrified. I stayed with him a couple months after because if he could do that, what else could he do to me? A few months later, he faked his suicide, and that's when I knew he was effing crazy. His reasoning was wanting to see who was there for him. Like, okay, crazy V. Yeah, that's what? I'm 20 now. I just got a Medusa tattoo. It is a symbol of sexual assault survivors. I never knew that was the symbol for sexual assault survivors. I've had to do a lot to get to where I am now, but please, to anybody else who has been in a similar situation, I am so sorry, and please do not give up. Assaults had their chance to control us, but it's our turn to control us now. I love you all. We have a purpose. We are strong, and we are survivors. I think that was absolutely perfectly said. And I just want to put a memo out there. Victim blaming is not okay in the comments. I try my best to remove any of that when I see it. If there's something that you see that hasn't been brought to my attention, please email me or reach out and just let me know a screenshot of who the commenter is, and I can just remove the comment. That's not what this series is about. It's to learn from experiences, it's to heal, it's to grow, and it's to prevent something from happening to somebody else. So for people to put out situations in their life that they do not want to talk about, that are painful, that they probably already feel very regretful for, and then having somebody judge them for that when all they're trying to do is just help somebody else stay out of a situation, I not okay with that. So please, only love and positivity to everybody who is vulnerable enough and brave enough to share their stories. You truly have no idea how many people you will impact and how many lives that you are going to change, and you're not even going to realize it because this is going to be prevented from happening to somebody else. All right, and the next story says, "Hi Sherilyn, the story I'm about to share with you is not one I am directly involved with, but rather is my dad's story. Out of his privacy and respect, I won't be sharing his name, but I am comfortable if you wish to share mine if it helps with the storytelling aspect. I've been watching your channel for a while now and was seriously so excited when I found out you were a creator from Edmonton, as I grew up outside of Sherwood Park for most of my life and now live outside of Fort Saskatchewan with my fiance. So close to me. This happened back when I was in high school and may have been a case you could have seen on the news, but you may need some backstory for it to make sense. When I was 7, my mom had passed away, making it just my dad and I for a number of years. When I got older, he started going on dates more once he had become comfortable with his journey with grief and knew I would be okay with it too. He had dated a few women, but nothing had really stuck. That was until he met Melanie Hunter, or as we would come to know her, Mel. Mel was our new insurance broker, as our original one had gone on maternity leave. We had gone in to meet her a few times. I had just started driving at the time, so insurance and all of that fun stuff, and he was rather taken by her. He had finally asked her on a date one day after he had kept making excuses to come back to the insurance building, really just to see her. Something along the lines of, "It doesn't look like you have a ring. If you're not married or taken, would you by chance want to go for dinner?" That's so precious. She excitedly agreed, and soon after, they had started dating. My dad had said that early on within the relationship, as they were getting to know each other, that she had indeed been married and that she was going through a rather nasty divorce, even though they had been separated for a few years at that point. However, she said it wouldn't be an issue and that she was just excited to get back out there and enjoy life. My dad would soon realize the extent of the nastiness and just how messed up this man actually was. Her ex would clone her phone so he would see any and all messages, calls, texts, etc. she would receive on her phone, but not her sent messages like ones she would send, but would be able to send messages from her phone number without her knowledge, as she wouldn't see them. So he was able to send as if it was her, and then she wouldn't see it on her end, is what I'm getting here. So obviously he could see when she would plan a date and with whom and so on. After one of their dates early on, my dad had messaged her saying how he had such a great time and he is excited to do it again sometime soon. And she would reply back and say that she also had a great time and was looking forward to it. Then later, he would receive a bombardment of messages saying how she never wanted to see him again, how she had a horrible time, and that he was disgusting and treated her horribly. And my dad would obviously be taken aback by this and reply with something along the lines of, "I'm so sorry. I'm so confused. I thought we had a great time." And all she would reply back was, "F. He did it again." Turns out this had been an ongoing issue since their separation a few years earlier, and he was rather possessive and controlling. Oh my gosh, on another level. This is a nightmare. However, most people who go through divorces would say that they aren't amicable or pleasant, and some of this is to be expected. However, no one would have ever thought it would have went down like this. The day they were supposed to sign the papers and finalize their divorce, Mel was murdered in her home. Her ex never showed up that day at the court appointment, and she had somewhat expected that considering how difficult he had been leading up to it, so moved to reschedule. Later that evening, she was in bed upstairs, and because my dad and I lived on an acreage outside of Sherwood Park, and I was still a minor, they didn't always get to spend the evenings together. They would often FaceTime though. She was FaceTiming my dad, venting about her day and how frustrating it was since she just wanted it over and done with already. While they were on FaceTime, her ex broke into her upstairs bedroom, shocking her. The screen went black, but was still connected, and all my dad could hear was her screaming, followed by chilling silence. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thankfully, he had been to her home before, so he immediately called 911 with her address as soon as he heard the altercation begin. But unfortunately, by the time police and ambulance arrived, Mel had passed away. Oh my gosh. No! The man had stabbed her to death with a serrated steak knife from her own kitchen. When police arrived, they found him in her attached ensuite bathroom with self-inflicted wounds, a pathetic attempt to make it look like a murder-suicide. She was stabbed. I'm not allowed to give detail, that descriptive details on YouTube. I'm going to say dozens and dozens of times with the steak knife. When police arrived, all exterior doors were locked and police had to enter through a second-story window. The man was originally charged with first-degree murder, but instead pleaded guilty to second-degree murder as to avoid a trial, which, to be honest, just boils my blood, Sherilyn, but I know you know. I know, because I'm getting hot in here. He claimed that he didn't remember a freaking thing, not a thing about the incident, but miraculously could remember taking 6 sleeping pills that day. I'm just gonna vomit everywhere right now. He was given a life sentence. All second-degree murder charges automatically receive life, but is eligible for parole in only 13 years. Yup, I was like, okay, this is a Canadian case. Where's the slap on the wrist? Wow. In addition to this, he is subject to a 10-year weapons ban. Does that include steak knives? Great question. Asking for a friend. Exactly. And is also required to submit DNA to the national database. Okay. Gosh, Canada. He has a no contact order for his children, for my dad, as well as myself. However, on the off chance he is eligible for parole, his name is Brian Beglau, Beglau, and he would be released in the Edmonton area, my area. Perfect. Oh my gosh. Scary to think his parole hearing would be only a few years away now. You better believe I'm going to be attending. My dad had to go to Medicine Hat to meet a trauma specialist that works closely with the Medicine Hat Fire Department, which my uncle had been a part of for years. But he was truly never the same. I was just going to ask about your dad because being on the phone for that, I just can't imagine what he's going through. The funniest part, in a sick and twisted way, was I had no idea what had happened until the story was playing on the 6 p.m. news in 2017, 2 years after it had occurred, and my dad informed me that was what happened to Mel and why we hadn't seen her in a while. Oh my gosh, he was trying to protect you. I honest to God thought that they had broken up, but he informed me that he had been taken by police for questioning that night at 2 a.m., got dropped off back at home, went to work, and went on like nothing happened. Didn't say a word until the sentencing had been finished. My father is truly a remarkable man, and whenever I feel like I'm giving him a hard time or anything, as we all do, I always think back to just how much that man has been through, losing his wife so young and then having this happen as soon as he tried to get back out there on the dating scene. And protecting you in all of this to just make it seem like, oh, he was okay and everything was normal and not to worry you. I truly miss the radiance that Mel had and her sheer kindness and positive outlook she had on the world. I fully know it in my bones that she is at peace and that eternal peace was not something he could take away from her. However, just to ensure that I don't leave you on a tragic note, my dad did eventually find love. Oh my God, I was gonna ask. And he will eventually be getting married to his lovely fiancée this summer. Despite everything he has been through, he remains happy and truly wants the most out of life. Thank you for sharing my story and for being one of the best true crime creators out there. Best regards. Oh God. Kristen M. Okay, I needed a minute. This is what I mean when I'm saying like just how much this series can impact people, myself included. I think we forget about everybody behind the scenes in these tragic cases. People who live through the trauma and have to relive what they've gone through, who they've lost. That pain never goes away. It is beautiful though when you're able to share what a positive impact she had on your life, and I'm sure that piece of her that touched you will just stay with you forever. And then your dad just being brave enough to get back out there, love again. It really touched me because I mean, I don't even know you all personally or Melanie, but just based on your description of her, it obviously sounds like she was so lovely, and that's what she would have wanted for him too. Oh, thank you for sharing that. All right, our next story. Hi Sherilyn, I've been watching your channel since way back and I love how much you've grown. You're amazing and thank you for doing this. I have my own story, which I will share. I'm not sure if it's the kind of thing you're looking for, but here goes. For some context, I'm now in my early 40s and I am from Wales in UK. I was 17 and had everything to live for. I met a man who was 10 years older than me. He lived in my local area and my friends told me he had just come out of prison and was bad news. I didn't listen, of course. In fact, the excitement of being with him was heightened the more I was warned. V quickly became very controlling and made me move out of my mother's and get a flat with him. Many bad things happened. Too many to go into. But at the age of 19, I was pregnant with his baby. One day, an argument erupted and he threw me down the stairs, dragged me back up them by my hair, and proceeded to stomp all over me. I was 7 months old pregnant with 2 black eyes and multiple injuries. I was in total agony. He put me to bed in the flat and wouldn't let me out. It was a top floor flat and I couldn't do anything to get my baby help. 2 weeks went by and when he went to the shop, I was strong enough to escape. My whole body was shaking, but the adrenaline kicked in and I ran to a doctor's surgery and tried explaining. They took me straight to the hospital. My baby didn't make it and I had to give birth to him dead. Oh my gosh. They told me due to the baby decaying inside of me, I wouldn't be able to have children. Hospitals rang the cops. They gave him 18 months in prison and moved me out of the area while he was inside. What? I have never been the same, but I did have my miracle baby when I was 28 after 4 miscarriages. Oh my God. He's now 20 and my whole world. I still suffer from PTSD from that idiot who, by the way, died 8 years ago from throat cancer, apparently. I mean, I don't want terrible things to happen to people, but when terrible people do terrible things, I feel like sometimes that just kind of sorts itself out. He had totally ruined my life, and if my story even stops one person from thinking that the exciting bad boy will change for them when they don't change for anybody, then I will be happy. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you so much for putting this out there. I think this is something really important to talk about because that is a very common theme. I'm not saying that it's like this for everybody, but there is that element of, being attracted to the bad boy or definitely pursuing things that people around you are telling you you shouldn't, and there's that feeling of almost like, well, if you say I shouldn't, then I really want to. And this is just an example of sometimes people who care for you are really just looking out for you, and sometimes even if it's hard to resist that urge, it's probably for the best. And although this is already so tragic and devastating in itself, this could have been so much worse where you also lost your life. So thank you for putting yourself out there to potentially save somebody else's. All right, our next story says, Sherilyn, I love your videos and how genuine you are. You probably have so many stories from your viewers, so I don't know if you'll get this. I did get it. My cousin Angela was with this wannabe DJ off and on for about 2 years. He was a loser, never held a job, etc. So when she was finally done with him, she moved back to her mom's house in New Jersey. Her mom had just gone through significant surgery and Angela wanted to be there for her. On March 12th, 2009, she was out and about with her friend, but her friend had to drop off Angela earlier than they had planned. She walked into the apartment and her ex was robbing the apartment. She started screaming and yelling at him to get out. They got into an altercation in Angela's bedroom. There was loud banging. The neighbors reported that to the police only after, when the investigation started. Bystander syndrome is dangerous. About 3 hours later, her mom and husband came home and knocked on Angela's bedroom door because it was locked. There was no answer, so her mom assumed she was sleeping. 3.5 hours later, her mom got concerned because she hadn't gotten up, so she knocked on the door. And then again, harder. Silence. So her mom's husband took the door off the hinges and found her lying face up on her bedroom floor. There was no response. Cops were called. They came and wrote in the police report that it was a drug overdose, heroin, because they found a couple of empty bags and a needle in between her toes. Her mother was adamant and demanded a toxicology report. No illegal drugs. Not a drug overdose. Also, the bruises started to show on her neck. Officially ruled a homicide, and the perp tried to make it look like an overdose. Wow. As I said, the cops started asking neighbors during the investigation. They said they heard her say his name and saw him crawling out of her bedroom window with a bag, the things that he had robbed, and still never called 911. Oh, the guy was on the run. His brother was arrested because he looked so much like his brother. The police said the father and brother of this murderer were going to help, but months passed. I created a fake Facebook page to try to befriend him because he was updating sometimes on there. He was finally turned in by his girlfriend. She knew what he had done and only turned him in because he had told her he would do the same thing to her that he did to my cousin. So they finally got him. He was found guilty of first-degree murder and got 73 years. Mind you, he was arrested over 30 times before he killed my cousin, some of them for assault and domestic abuse. Oh. The judge said it took at least 8 minutes to murder her by strangulation. Her story is in the local papers in New Jersey. Anecdotal weird paranormal story associated. I don't know how long before my cousin was killed because I don't remember how long before she died that I had this dream, but in my dream she calls me. I ask her if she's sick because her voice sounds grovelly. She says, "No, don't worry about me. I'll be okay." I hang up the phone and look at my hands, and I have pins sticking out of them, like those flat top all silver push pins. I will never forget that dream. It wasn't the worst dream I had ever had until she was killed, and now it's a bizarre and unexplained nightmare. Oh, yeah, that just made me feel the type of way. Love your content and what you do for your viewers. Love, happiness, and peace, Jolene. I am sending all of that love, happiness, and peace right back to you. Thank you so much for sharing Angela's story with us. I'm going to need to take an ice bath after this one. I don't understand how the system can be so flawed. I mean, somebody who had been arrested over 30 times on assault and domestic abuse charges to be released that many times, it's unacceptable. This was so preventable. Oh, it makes me feel so helpless because I don't even know what to say or who to turn to or what to do because laws are so different everywhere you go, and you can't help but feel like your hands are tied, and that it just makes me feel so sick and just have this pit in my stomach. I'd love to hear some suggestions from you of how I can go about getting some laws passed. All right, our next story says, "Hi Sherilyn, I wanted to reach out to you not only to share my friend's story, but to also shed some light on how bad domestic violence can get. Kelsey's story is a long one. I will send some links and screenshots to maybe help tell the story better than I can. We met back when we both joined a baby center group for our October 2010 pregnancies. We became close with about 17 other girls, and we then branched off and made our own Facebook group. We would talk all the time, literally tell each other everything. She was a beautiful, funny, super talented woman who loved her kids with every bone in her body. At the time, she had a stepdaughter who was 14, I believe, a daughter who was 4, her October baby, and a son who was 1. Kelsey would sometimes mention how her husband had a temper. One time he threw a remote at her, but she never led us to believe that he had hurt her in any way. In November 2014, right before American Thanksgiving, She had reached out to me on Facebook to tell me that she had left Mike. Kevin is his real name, but he went by Mike. And she needed me to take her out of our Facebook group. She was staying with a friend. I soon came to learn it was actually a shelter, and she was safe. She didn't get into too much detail, but I let our group know, and I hoped she would be in touch again. She had chatted with me a few times, just telling me not to add her back to our group and explain more of what had happened. The last time I spoke to her was November 26th around 9:30 a.m. After that, a post was made on her Facebook profile by Mike posing as her, and all communication stopped. We started reaching out to her family and friends, and they quickly put together search parties for her. She wasn't found until early December. The way they found her and the things we've come to learn about how she died have shaken us all to the core. I've attached some news clippings here to explain the rest. It's incredibly hard to talk about. Thank you so much for sharing her story. Please, if you can, share some links to local shelters for anybody who needs to leave a situation like this. XO Rachel. I'm just pulling up and looking at this news article right now, and I can't imagine how hard this was for you to learn about your friend. Just for context for everybody watching, I'm not going to go into extreme detail here, but her husband admitted to police for being responsible for Kelsey's death. He admitted to shooting her in the arm, head, and chest. He then dismembered her body and disposed the remains in a self-storage unit that he asked a friend to rent for him. Allegedly, he did this because he was asking her to shoot him because he had colon and stomach cancer, and when she refused, he attacked her. I'm going to finish this video off though by sharing the screenshots of the conversations that Kelsey had with her girlfriends in this group, and I don't believe that story of his in any way, and I don't even know what the point of it would have been, because it still has you coming out doing something so horrific to your wife. I absolutely will leave links to domestic violence hotlines. I know that shelters are going to be different in every state and country, so if I can find something that kind of has like a directory to all of that, I'll also have that included for you as well. That is our last story for the day. Thank you so much, everybody, for submitting. Thank you, everybody in the comments who sends so much love and support. You're all just the freaking greatest, and you make my heart explode. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See how excited I am for those subscriptions. Can't even talk about it. Well, seriously, you don't have to, but I do appreciate it so much. I will see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.